Hey everybody, thank you so much for climbing into my channel today. I'm so happy you're here. My name is Natalie. If you're new to this channel, we talk about everything Bible. So let's and God, Bible and God. The word is God. God is his word in the Bible. Okay. So thank you so much for being here. I'll be back in just a sec. So today we're going to be talking about Matthew. Meanwhile, this whole entire time we've been studying Matthew's word, like how he's seen Jesus, right? And how in his words of how he's seen Jesus, right? Because we have been studying the Gospel of Matthew. So today that's what we're going to talk about, like who was Matthew. Now there wasn't really much to find about who Matthew was, right? But I did do some digging, some research, some Bible scrolling, some things like that. So what I learned that Matthew was a publican. A publican is also known as a tax collector. Then was very bad. They were known as the sinners. They were called sinners because of the things they would do. They would take from the poor, right? And they would also work for the Romans. They were Jews that were working for Romans, working for the Romans. So it felt like the Jews were against Jews and kind of like some uh they were known as being people as a sellout. There we go. They were a sellout, okay? Because they were literally working for the Romans and they were Jews stealing from their own people. So it was just really a bad situation, okay? So that's what Matthew did, okay? Matthew is also the son of a man named Alphaeus, okay? And another thing is I learned too that I didn't know was that Matthew's name was Levi. I don't know when he changed his name to Matthew, but I do know that when you are turned into an apostle with Jesus, right? When he changed you or changed your name, changed your character, your name also changed. You're not your character, but when he changes the way you are, your name change. And names are very, very important, right? They tell you who you are, what they give you a definition of who you are, right? And it kind of reveals who you are just by your name. So when it came to Matthew turning into well, he was Levi, turned into Matthew. I'm not sure if Jesus did that. It doesn't say he did that, but at some point he did change his name to Matthew. So what happened was it looks like that Jesus saw Matthew, right? And he was amongst the sinners and the publicans, which was tax collectors. And he chose Matthew and told him to follow him, and Matthew did, right? And so Matthew became an apostle. And Matthew, he had to give up a lot of things. He had to give up his old life, right? Because when you walk with Jesus, that's giving up everything that's in your past that you have, right? And so he walked with Jesus and he wrote what he had seen Jesus do, right? His works and his actions and his words, what Jesus said, how he healed, you know, the people who walk, the people who can't see, who turned them blind. He's seen these things. And this is what we've been studying, right? But I never thought to study Matthew. I'm very sorry about that. Silly me, okay? I just know it's in the Bible. I'm reading the Bible. I'm studying the Bible, but I never thought to see who that was. Okay, so when it comes to the gospel, right? Because that's what he did. He wrote the gospel. The gospel is uh good news, right? Jesus is about Jesus and his resurrection and his death, right? It tells us his walk with Jesus. It tells us Jesus's death. They talk about it and there is like four different people who wrote the gospel. Their names are Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Okay. So they wrote the gospel, and the gospel is the good news of Jesus, right? And they all have their own interpretations. That's why sometimes I look at what I was studying. Sometimes I will say sometimes, but the last time I studied, which was about getting saved, the last time I actually looked through other people's stuff to see what other people were saying, right? Because I remember running into, I think it was Luke, they have different interpretations. Like when I was, oh, actually, I was just studying, when I was studying who Matthew was, that's how I figured out that his name changed, because, and that his name was also Levi, because um, if you go to Mark 2, verse 14, Jesus called Levi. He said Levi when Mark talked about, when Mark, one of the gospel writers, wrote wrote in the Bible, what I'm trying to say, wrote in the Bible about Levi, about what had happened to Matthew. Jesus called him Levi. And when Matthew talks about it, Matthew 9:9, he says he uses his name Matthew. So that's how I knew that Levi and Matthew were the same people, because it was literally in the same text. It was literally the same scenario. Okay. And um so back to what the gospels are. So four people wrote the gospel: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Okay. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, right? And, they talked about his resurrection. They talked about Jesus's walk, the same things they seen in their own point of view. Because like I said, it's like you read Mark and Mark has his view on what happened, but it's all the same thing. But it's just sometimes it's more information and just different interpretations of what happened. Right. And, but, and I feel like sometimes people just be, I feel like sometimes people are like, oh, this clashes with this, but no, it's just, if you were to go to the store and you saw a man crossing the street, you'll say this man crossed the street, okay? But the next person would say, oh, he was wearing a blue and red shirt and he crossed the street. Okay. That's how I feel like what the Bible's about. It's not anybody clashing and having a disagreement on who said what and what they saw. No, it's all about the message. What are you learning from this? Because the Bible tells you the message of how he walked. It's not about what he said and how he said he would. It's not about clashing between one another and their differences. Okay. It's really about the message. What happened in the message? Even though he said Levi and Matthew, that's not the point. The point was, this man, Matthew, gave up his life. He gave up his past to be with Jesus, to walk with Jesus. And quick, let me mind you, because he didn't think about it. Jesus said, follow me. And Matthew got up and did it without a question. Okay. Okay, before I end the video, because this is a quick one, because I literally wanted it just to be about Matthew, so the people who are actually watching these videos and following, they actually know who Matthew is, because I didn't really know. I just studied what he thought about Jesus and who Jesus was, because that was the point, was to learn who Jesus was, right? So I want to say too more about the good news. So the good news is also that the good news is that Jesus died on the cross for us, right? To wash away our sins, to take away our sins, because he had no sin. So when he died on our cross, he took our sins. And then now when you he also gave you that choice to be saved, right? So he's saying, if you say my name, where is that? I think it was somewhere in Romans. Okay. Somewhere in Romans. If you checked, I believe a link right here where I talk about being saved, right, in the death of Jesus, right, and him rising, you confessing with your mouth his name and saying that, hey, that you believe that he has risen from death, right, after he died on the cross, right, and believing that he died on the cross and believing that he also was risen once they claimed him dead, right. Once you believe in that and confess with your mouth, with your heart and your soul, and believe it with your heart and your soul, you will be saved, right? So that's what the good news is, right? That is the good news. So that's what they talk about. Jesus and his walk, what he had done, his death, him resurrecting. These are the things that were good news, and these are what the things the Gospels has talked about. And that's what Matthew is writing about. He is writing about Jesus. So I think we got it, right? I think that's it. All right. Well, I love you guys. Thank you so much. I will see you next week. I already studied next week. For next week, I started to study that probably last week before I thought about, oh, I should probably study who Matthew is. So I am ready for it. I will obviously relook at it, because just to, get a fresher, because I feel like who cares how many times you read it, because it's just like, well, not who cares, but I read my Bible a million times just to make sure that you guys get the information that you need, and that I can basically say it in the right words. Okay, I'm rambling. Okay, well, I love you guys. I will see you next week. And if you're interested, there is a Bible study tonight at 7 o'clock on Thursday. Please be there. I mean, this is like, these right here are good, right? They're good. You're listening to me. You're taking in the word, but it's like better because you get to see me. Okay, you get to see me. We get to chit chat. Maybe you might go in the chat and say, "Hey, Natalie." I don't know, but I do want you to be there because we can learn the Bible together, study the word. I mean, we're doing that now, but I don't know. It'd be nice. It's nice. Okay. It's nice. I'm giving you that option because I love the Lord and there's never enough reading the Bible. Okay. Well, let me get off here because I keep rambling. I love you guys again more than you will ever know. Okay. Read, breathe, Bible. Deuces.